Welcome back to Outrage Science Bites. I'm David Beckmeyer, and this is day 22 of our 30-day challenge as we continue our deep dive into bridging our divides. For the past 3 weeks, we've covered the core of dialogue, how to listen, how to disagree respectfully, and how to navigate disagreements. But one powerful question I often hear from listeners, particularly those who have attended a workshop or a dialogue: okay, I talked to the other side, now what? Dialogue is an essential first step, but the real change happens when we move beyond conversation and start taking collective action. Joining us again is Heidi Burgess of Beyond Intractability. Heidi is tracking the most exciting new phase of the bridging movement, the shift from purely dialogue-based work to civic-led solutions. Here's Heidi.
I think one of the things that's happening now that I find exciting is that people are getting more involved in next steps. So, for instance, there's an organization called Braver Angels, which for a long time just held meetings, dialogues between people on the left and people on the right, and they got to know each other better, and they had some snacks, and they went away feeling good, and there was kind of a, okay, great, now what? Braver Angels is now beginning to realize that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that unless folks start acting together. So they've started something called citizen-led solutions, and we're also working with another organization that's called Better Together America, that's creating what they call civic hubs, which bring together, starting with 10, then 50, then 100, then 1,000, growing people in a community who identify one particular problem that they're concerned about, and they work together to solve it. And these are not partisan groups. They're not red and blue, Republican, Democrat. There are people who are concerned about homelessness, or people who are concerned about environmental protection, or people who are concerned about whatever it is, coming together in their local community and solving that problem. And these things are growing like, bad metaphor, but wildfire all over. And they're being successful. And it's my hope that as more and more of these things spring up, people are going to look and say, hey, that's a better way of doing things. And we've heard a lot of stories of people in towns where they do successfully impact, if not solve, the homelessness problem. And then people say, hey, that worked. We ought to try it on this problem, and we ought to try it on that problem. So they start using it for different problems. And in Boulder, Fort Collins, and Montrose have been using this very successfully. These are two fairly small, moderate-sized cities in Colorado. They've been using these techniques successfully. So other cities in Colorado can say, hey, look at what they've been doing. And we ought to try the same thing. And if this approach starts working in more cities and towns, in more states, and they've been working in red states and blue states, it sounds kind of like a blue thing, but it isn't. It's been working quite successfully in red states as well. Then it's my hope that at some point, our national leaders are going to look and say, those guys in this, that, and the other state are running things a whole lot more successfully than we are in Washington. Maybe we should consider adopting some of those approaches. And there actually are a couple of committees in Congress who have already been doing that, who realize that these approaches are better. And they've been, when Congress has been in session, pushing this sort of thing. So I think there's hopes for it to scale up, but a lot of the people who are working on this feel this isn't the time to scale up now. Right now, the federal government is just too deeply divided, but these approaches are really working well at the local level. So my answer to the people who are listening to this and say, yeah, I talked to Joe, okay, fine, now what? Identify some problem in your community that you're interested in or concerned about, and go online and find out who's working on that problem? Who else is concerned about that problem? And most go on next door and say, hey, I'm concerned about X. Anybody else concerned about X? Either latch onto an organization that you find, or if you get 4 or 5 people on next door who answer you and say, yeah, I'm concerned, have them over for coffee. Start talking about how you see the problem, what you'd like to see done about the problem, who you might need to get involved if you were going to do something about the problem. It's ordinary people who are forming all these civic hubs that are forming. And you could get help from Better Together America and citizen-led solutions. So there are organizations out there that are ready and eager to help you. And most of these hubs have started with a small group of people. So there's things that individuals can do. And yeah, we're not going to affect the whole system right away. But if we can make a small change on our block, in our neighborhood, these things scale up.
That's all for today's episode of Outrage Science Bites. Stay curious, and until next time, I'm David Beckmeyer. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy these Science Bites episodes, you may enjoy the long-form Outrage Overload podcast at outrageoverload.net.